What's up, everybody? This is indeed the E-Man, chilling like a villain, singing like Bob Dylan, keep it on low with some double stuff. Oreos. And right now, guys, I have a special guest right now, special treat, man. You know, people who know me know that I love movies. Movies are my bread and butter, okay? And this actor right here, he happens to be in two movies that I absolutely positively love. He's been in many movies, though. He's been in Leprechaun. He was in Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Teen Wolf 1 and 2. And his film career has decades long, you know, and come to the show today. And I just want to welcome Mr. Mark Holton. How are you doing today?
I am well. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Emmanuel, for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
No problem. No problem. So, man, this is a treat. Generally, how are you doing today on this beautiful Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon?
It has been absolute roasting hell week here, and was up to 109, 108, and they tack on the feels like you're going to die.
Yeah.
And so it's finally, we're getting some breezes in, and the rain has been hitting all around us. But soon it'll come just in time for the rest of my lawn to turn completely brown.
You're over there in Oklahoma, right?
Yes, sir. In
Right.
the Tulsa area, and we're in somewhat of a drought after going through deluges and flood alerts, and now it's gone the other way. It's just nuts.
Wow. I'm in South Carolina, so I feel you, man. Because like right now, it has to be like it's 98, but it feels like 120. You know what I mean? So it's crazy.
I am happy for you if you're in South Carolina. I've got a friend older friend that moved there, and he and his wife just love it.
He's in like the Charleston area.
It's a little place. It's on the coast. They were renting, and they just found a house recently. And I can't think of the name of the town.
Oh, okay.
But I couldn't afford to live there. That's all I know. So
probably I don't know a lot. Like I moved here like maybe actually I've been here for 14 years, but I relatively stay in like my town, and then like I live in a town. I live like 20 minutes away from Charlotte, North Carolina, so I travel there or whatever. But that's like my go-to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I always like to start off with every interview with the childhood. So I wanted to ask you, like, what was your childhood like living in Oklahoma City? And what was your favorite cereal growing up?
Actually, when I was just before I turned 4, I moved from Oklahoma City to a small town, and I don't remember my life in Oklahoma City very much. Just little things there. But after I moved here, we had the kids in the neighborhood that were knocking on the door, wondering who the new kid was, and of course, everybody was Lone Ranger crazy then.
Right.
We had 3 television stations, and we had cartoons in the afternoon. We had on the weekends, we had westerns and more westerns,
right,
and occasionally a Tarzan movie, which we loved. So it was kind of like growing up in Mayberry, North Carolina.
Like Mayberry, okay.
Yeah. So there were big Dutch elms that covered the street and shaded it, and it was pretty idyllic. Had a good childhood. So, and my favorite cereal. Well, I would usually eat cereal in the evening, like instead of dessert or whatever, and that would probably be something like Rice Krispies with bananas. My mother was a Southern cook, so if you had cereal, it was usually oatmeal or grits, yellow grits. Yeah. And I still love those a lot.
Absolutely, man. Like I said, I was born in Jersey, but I was raised in North Carolina, and I live in South Carolina now. But even growing up, like my only options really were like oatmeal, Bisquick pancakes, or cornflakes. That's it. But I would have to go over my cousin's house to get the exclusive stuff. Like I would go and open up his cupboard. He would have everything from Trix to Lucky Charms to all the monster cereals, and it was beautiful. But so I understand what you're saying. As a matter of fact, I remember the first time I had apples and cinnamon oatmeal, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is actually pretty good," you know. you know, what was your favorite? You talking about cartoons? What was your favorite cartoon growing up? Because like I was like I'm a child of the '80s, so what was your favorite Saturday morning cartoon?
They were usually Merry Melodies, Warner Brothers, Bugs Bunny,
Yeah, man.
Sylvester, all those great classics. And then in the afternoons after school, they would usually have something like Uncle Zeb's cartoon camp, where the kids are in the bleachers and they're playing cartoons, and so there was treats when we'd go to the movies or whatever. We would see things like Pink Panther
Right.
as a tease before the film. So we had great cartoons. We if you were lucky enough to see a Disney cartoon,
Right.
that was pretty special, and you pretty much had to see that in the theater or forget it till VHS came out, of course.
Right. He's in a small town, and so like movies were everything to me. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, like going to the movies was a big deal. It wasn't something that happened often. And I remember I will never ever forget like the first time I went to the movies and I watched Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And it can, as an 8-year-old kid, who didn't see Raiders of the Lost Ark, I didn't know what to expect, and it completely blew my mind. Like, I mean, voodoo dolls and monkey brains and all this stuff was foreign to me. So it totally gave me my first movie going experience. So as an actor, I ask you, what was your first movie that really blew your mind? You were like, oh my gosh, I gotta be an actor. What was it?
Well, I really don't remember how that hit. It kind of came about when I saw the movie. I loved it. I loved the movie Patton. I loved Godfather or whatever. But my opportunity to become an actor was actually to raise my grade in my freshman year, and I was getting a horrible grade in English. So one of the ways you could do that is to enter an intramural contest of standard oratory. And of course, like an idiot, I chose Patton's Address to His Men, which is just laced with, foul mouth, expletives, just, machine gun fire, one after the other. But it seemed like society put up with it because, well, that was General Patton. That's what he had to do to win World War II. So that was probably my mentality. And next thing I know, I'm standing up in front of the student body and belting this stuff out, and saved my grade, won the competition, and got called to the principal's office.
Okay.
And I thought it through, and I went, that was a really bonehead move. I'm probably going to be expelled. And in fact, I just, I know I'm going to be expelled. So the vice principal sat me down, and he just pretty much stared at me and made me uncomfortable for a little bit and said, we don't use that language at this school ever. And I said, yes, sir. I just thought. He goes, cool it. He said, don't do it again. Go back to class. And then he goes, good job.
Wow.
So yeah, that getting away with the shit, I thought, well, this is fun. I've got my little gold medal. I think I'll just stick with this through high school and see where it leads. Nice. So that was the moment. That was my opportunity, and I always trace it back to that one day. Glad I took the chance.
Absolutely, man. Like, absolutely. Teen Wolf 1 and 2, man. Like, okay, so let's start off with Teen Wolf, man. which came out in '85, starring Michael J. Fox, Jerry Levine, Susan. What was your last name?
Ursat?
Ursat and the late great James Hampton.
Yeah.
And it's like this, man. Like there aren't too many movies. Like I remember as a kid, like loving that movie so much. I would go in the bathroom mirror and pretend I was changing. I was like, doing this number like Michael J. Fox was doing. And and also it was written by Jeff Loeb, who now is like this big wig at Marvel Studios. So it's he's written comic books and stuff like that. My movie foundation, you know what I mean? And it's so funny now. I watch it now differently as an adult, because there were moments as a kid I would watch and would make me feel uncomfortable, and I didn't understand why. And now as an adult, I understand it. There's a part where they're at the dance, like it's like during the final scene where they're at the dance, and Mick just punches Scott, and then he insults his date, and Scott, of course, turns into a werewolf, and he just lashes out on him. And like when he punches when Mick punches Scott, nobody really defends him. I mean, nobody like stands up for him. I remember like from that perspective from the ground, he's looking up and all his friends are circling him. He's like, and I just remember feeling like, well, why wouldn't they help him? What's your interpretation of it?
Well, I think that the Beavers team itself and represents the kids in high school that weren't part of the in crowd, that weren't part of the clique, that were looked down on differently, looked down on, excluded. And there's not that big a percentage of people that are in the know, the cool crowd. The biggest percentage of any class of high schooler are going to be people like I was in high school. You're picked on, you're a nerd or whatever. And I think it was just, it was like, I'm living vicariously, through these people, and they should by all rights, this team should just be, wiped out every game, but they're winning, and I think it just kind of tugs on those heartstrings, those feelings that you can, people got a lot of satisfaction from that. And I hear from people, and this, recently, and it's just starting to blow my mind, quite honestly, Emmanuel. There are people in Scotland and parts of the UK that still watch this on a regular basis. Some of their television stations are still running it. And then Spain, Spain is huge. It is not just a cult classic in American culture. It is also it's got a global presence, or as limited as it is, but I was really shocked. How does that translate? You got the film, and of course, it's going to be translated to Spanish, and yet it succeeded with the story. It affected them the way it affected you and me.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a pretty neat tribute. Anyway, I'm glad that's one of your faves.
Oh man, absolutely, man. Like so I have to ask you, man, what was it like working with Michael J. Fox, late great James Hampton, and even Jerry Levine, who now he's directing and writing and doing all this other stuff. What was it like working with those people?
They were great. We all had a lot of fun. Jerry was a hoot and a half always. Michael was very kind to me, and actually was instrumental in expanding my role. Chubby initially was not very big in the script.
Okay.
He was pretty much a sight gag. The fat friend takes a big bite of Twinkie, and we do the close up, and he's chewing the Twinkie and wah wah wah.
Right.
And every film back then, you had the fat friend,
right,
take a bite of candy bar or something like that. So they limited that, I think, to one scene in the locker room, And then, they started, developing the story. And when you have a story that's developing in motion, on the basketball court, there were, moments to where, okay, well, how do we go from point A to point B? And then, Michael would pop in and say, why don't you have Chubby do it?
Nice.
And I'm going, yeah, sure. Yeah, I think you should do that. So by the time, the film was over, I was just blown away. I started out as this, side gag, and, here I'm being carried on on the shoulders of the crowd.
That's like one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, it was, I look back on it, it really didn't hit me back then, because it was just another notch in my belt, so to speak, as I was going along. But I definitely have fond memories for that. And then I would run into James Hampton. Of course, I grew up watching James Hampton on television, and I would run into him at auditions. He would always ask how I'm doing, and he pretty much knew, if I was having a little trouble or whatever, and he'd follow me outside and talk to me. He was a wolf dad. Yeah, so I miss him.
Yeah, man, he seemed really nice. He's like a nice guy.
Yeah. Well, Jerry tells a story, and I don't know if he does podcasts. I don't think so. I don't. In fact, I've had trouble just finding out a way to get him a message and say hi. But one of my favorite Teen Wolf stories from a cast member comes from him. In fact, it is. After the film, Jerry goes to Israel, and he's doing the big tour, and he goes to the Wailing Wall. And being Jewish, Jerry goes up to the Wailing Wall and stands. And the guy standing next to him stops his prayers and goes, "Styles?"
That's great. That is so cool, man. That is so cool. That's great. It's like how universally loved that movie is. Like, and the part that really gets me in the feels is like that's like the third act of the movie, when you guys are playing you're playing the final game, and then that song kicks in, "Win in the End," and it's like man. And then at the very end, "Shooting for the Moon" plays. And to this day, it still makes me feel a certain way, man. It really hits me in the feels, man. To this day, man, it's just it's such a shift from the earlier parts of the movie. It goes from being this comedy to being this fantastic sports movie, and one of the best sports movie moments in history, in my opinion. Just to see, like you get carried off, and Scott has the courage to not use his gifts, but just quote unquote, I guess, be himself, and and everybody working as a team. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's funny. I haven't run into any fans that were just kind of wishy-washy, about the film. They either love it or they don't mention it. So I appreciate that. And wow, okay, well, that was worth the trip just to hear you say all that.
Yeah, man. Thanks, man. Absolutely, man. I wanted to ask you too, as far as I'll never forget, like I went to a video store and I saw this big standee, and it had Jason Bateman up there, and it said Teen Wolf 2. I was like, they made another one, and I was like, hold on. I remember seeing it briefly advertised. It didn't stay in the theaters long, and then I was like, okay, I can rent it, and I was so excited. And came out in '87. It was written by Tim Kring, who actually ended up writing and creating one of my favorite shows, which was called Heroes. I don't know if you ever watched that show. That show was fantastic. And of course, starring Jason Bateman, the legendary John Astin, and yourself. And to this day, I work on the college campus, and I work as in the cafeteria. And every time I walk on the college campus, that theme song, that college, that I associate college with that movie. So I associate college with A Different World and Teen Wolf 2. So I always hear that theme song. Hamilton, no Hamilton. Every time I walk on it's not even Hamilton, but I love that movie too. I mean, it's very it's pretty much the same movie, but I love Jason Bateman, and I really like the fact that your character becomes kind of a renaissance man because you see Chubb, he knows how to fence. He's a DJ. He knows how to play the tuba, so he becomes more fleshed out. So what was it like being on that set?
Oh, that was great. We're riding around in Corvettes, and of course, wardrobe's bringing us cool jackets and Cazal sunglasses and every flavor of tennis shoe you can imagine. The tennis shoe manufacturers and other manufacturers are just like supplying it. And it's like, at the end, you got to take all the cool stuff home.
Yeah. I think LA Gear, right? It was LA Gear shoes, right?
There was all sorts of stuff. I had a pair of boots that were, I call them my Dalmatian boots. Okay. And they were black and white spotted fur. And I wish I had kept them. They were just too weird. I don't remember them wearing them in the film. I don't think they ever made it on film, but I kept them anyway. I think it was a really neat time, and we were staying at Claremont colleges or whatever. So we had a great time off the set after rap every night or on the weekend. There was always cool stuff to do, and Jason was a lot of fun, and the guy that played Styles in part 2 or whatever, he was great. Stuart Fratkin.
Yeah, Stuart. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was. I wish the film had turned out to be as good as the experience was for me selfishly. Making it.
I remember like years ago, I read like in a magazine where Jason Bateman, either it was Jason or it was Stewart that said that, because your experience sounds great, but I believe one of them said like there was like a lot of tension as far as on the set because there was so much pressure for it to be better than the first one. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know about that. I think maybe that's a guesstimation. Most of the films at that time, a lot of the studios, they were just they had a formula, and if they had hit with part 1, then the sequel is going to do 3/4 of that. That was the formula. And I don't think that the people that were actually pulling the strings, the money changers or whatever, I don't think they gave a shit. If it I don't think they were really pushing anybody. I never felt like that or got that vibe from Jason, and it was certainly have translated if there was any pressure on him. So I don't know.
Cool. And did you get a chance to meet John Astin? Because I remember him from the Addams Family. What was he like?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, he's great. He's I have something that I usually say this about people that are really genuine or whatever, and I always say is somebody you'd want for a neighbor.
Yeah.
He was that guy, and of course he had a long theater resume or whatever, and he was just a lot of fun. I think we went out to dinner one time.
Cool.
And then, he had a young man named Sean Astin.
Yes.
Him on the set, a very shy young man or whatever that would go on to become Samwise Gamgee, and it's just a lot of people that I ran into, just hi and bye, nice to meet you, would go on to just astronomical careers.
Absolutely. I know I'm a big Goonies fan, so I remember Sean being Mikey from the Goonies, and that's like one of my favorite movies growing up as well. That's about Pee-wee's Big Adventure. That's another movie I remember exactly where I was when I watched that movie, because I was in third grade and we had like an ice cream party or what have you. And they were like, we're going to watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And I had never seen it. And I remember as a kid thinking it was funny, but it was extremely weird. And as an adult, I realized why it was weird, because it was directed by Tim Burton. And, you know, you got Tim Burton, you got Paul Reubens, and you got E.G. Daily. And I've grown to love that movie a whole lot. And I relate to it a lot too, because like even recently, I ride a bicycle everywhere. And recently my bicycle got stolen. And fortunately it got retrieved, you know, and that's a whole funny story. But yeah, it's just that feeling of loving something like your bike, or cherishing something, like feeling violated, that something got stolen from you. So I could totally relate to that movie. What was it like working with those wonderful people? And I want to paint a picture for people too, because like that movie is like one of the first movies where like in the 80s where like Pee-wee was just like kind of on the cusp of becoming this big thing. You know what I mean? And Pee-wee Herman is actually the inspiration for Jaleel White becoming Urkel. You know, he said it in an interview on a podcast. He said like two inspirations for Urkel was Pee-wee Herman and Ed Grimley. So yeah. What was it like being on set?
Now he's got his own line of pot with Snoop.
Right. It's crazy.
Hey, I don't know how. Okay, I'm going to try to answer this as best as I can. It was an unknown.
Okay.
To me, and pretty much an unknown to everybody else, what this film would turn out to be. I had seen Paul Reubens on late night television maybe twice, you know, dressed up like Pee-wee and doing the crazy stuff. I thought, well, this is funny or whatever, but I hadn't seen an HBO special. I didn't really, understand how popular the character was.
Right.
Tim Burton, his credit at that time was a short film called Frankenweenie that I hadn't seen. And saw it years later, and I went, golly, this is a real good indication of where he's going to go with the animation later on.
Right.
Fits in perfectly. And then you had I had people I didn't really know anybody in the Groundlings, so I had Phil Hartman from the Groundlings, and Michael Varhol was the third writer. So I didn't, I really didn't know anything, but I had a casting. I had to go to an audition.
Okay.
And I don't remember going to a preliminary audition. I remember going straight to Warner Brothers and walking in, and there's everybody.
Wow.
Everybody's in there, plus a lot of people and the executive producer. And I'm going, holy shit. This is talk about intimidating.
I bet.
And they said, well, we'd like for you to read with Paul. And I went, oh, okay, great. And then I look over, okay, yeah, that's him out of the Pee-wee thing. And we ran through it, and they had a nice reaction and said, thank you for coming in. So I think by the time I got home, which, after slugging it out in LA traffic and everything, and got to my little cassette recorder, my voice machine, there was, said, give us a call, and they had made the deal. So that's how that happened. It was just kind of like divine intervention.
Oh yeah.
They had pretty much called me in just in case their first choice died, or something like that, or backed out on them. And it turned out that their first choice wanted the moon, and they just went ahead and made the deal with me. And when they eventually called back with a counter offer that was, I hear, pretty ridiculous too, then it was like, sorry, role's already cast.
Wow.
I didn't know about that till a long time afterwards.
Oh man.
So, yeah. Anyway, and then the rest is history. That film is probably it's certainly in the films that I've done probably has probably the best comedy from that time period or any other time period. I think it's absolutely, one of those films from that time period where you cannot find, unless you look for it, anything that dates that movie. You can't come up with another film that was like it or
absolutely not.
To it. And anyway, it was an honor and a privilege to do it, and it's still an honor and a privilege. And I run into people. It's like 4 generations deep now.
Wow.
I remember my dad took me to see the movie, and now I've taken my kids, and now they've got kids, and they'll bring them to conventions and stuff to me. So it's like, wow, I was completely in the dark that any of this was going on in the background over the decades until recently. So yeah, it's a mind blower when you come to grips with it and accept it. And anyway, that's all I have to say about Pee-wee's Big Adventure for the time being.
I always thought like, it was more than just Francis getting a bike. I always thought like, because he had money, he was just jealous of Pee-wee and his simplicity for not, just his simplicity of just, having something that simple. So I always felt like he was just trying to get the happiness that Pee-wee had. You know what I'm saying? It was more than just the bike. I don't know if you ever, was that in your mind when you were playing the character?
He was definitely the only other character written on Pee-wee's level. He was the only adult child,
right?
And so every great hero deserves a good villain, and it was just a lot of fun. I had the honor of going to Dallas when Paul was touring with, I guess, the 35th anniversary tour, coast to coast, in these beautiful theaters. And I mean, oh God, Emmanuel, it was just this old theater in Dallas was just gorgeous. And they ran the MTV footage. It was the first premiere in the history of MTV Live. So I had never seen it. I was on my way or whatever. I wasn't, I wasn't able to see it. I somehow missed seeing it all these years. And then, there it is on the big screen. So I got treated to that. And then they went into the movie. And, when they got to the Alamo, you got some half-drunk Texans that just exploded. The stars at night are big, and they brought the rap.
Deep in the heart of Texas.
Absolutely. And if you haven't seen that scene with Texans, you haven't lived.
Absolutely.
And then Paul came out and talked about the movie, and he had a notebook with him, and set the notebook aside, sitting on a chair, and pulled out a balloon and blew up the balloon. And did about 20 minutes of some of the funniest comedy I've ever seen with a balloon. He's a comedic genius.
Oh yeah.
The place was just wrecked. The place before he even started telling things, and I'm going, God, I didn't know that. I never knew that. So I was just as blown away as anybody there. The things I was finding out. God, I'm glad I went, because I would still be clueless to all these cool things that were going on in the background. and after the film.
And did you ever get a chance to talk to E.G. Daily, who for people who don't know, she does the voice of Tommy Pickles. She sings. She does the voice of Buttercup Bubbles from the Powerpuff Girls. She's a talent too. Did you get a chance to on set? Did you get a chance to talk to her as well?
At the big drive-in scene at the end, and maybe one or two other occasions. I don't remember, but I know definitely at the drive-in, because she of course comes up with Pee-wee,
right,
after he gets blown into the stratosphere off the bike. So
wow,
yeah, she's had such a great career. I mean, I never dreamed at the time that she would become this voice goddess.
Oh yeah.
I'll hear a child's voice on Instagram, and I have to look to make sure it's not her.
Right.
Yeah,
she's like one of the big voices in the animated industry. It's either her, or it's going to be Tara Strong, or it's going to be Cree Summer. There's tons of people who are just like tons of talented people, and yeah.
And she's still young and beautiful. That's what kids me.
Oh yeah, she really is. Like, and the sequel, and also when he had his show, I was hoping to see a return of Frances, but that never happened. Was there ever talks of that?
There was a change of studios, and an upset in the hierarchy of what went on that was out of my control until it was over with and done. But yeah, there was talk, and I had a sequel writer on my contract. If there was a sequel, then negotiations would start at X amount, but that it didn't happen. And it's just one of those things that we're, if you think you've got a sure deal in Hollywood, you probably don't, and you shouldn't bank on it. I've known a lot of guys over the years who'll get a series, and they'll spend money like they've already shot the first 13 episodes, and they get canceled after 6.
Okay.
And
wow.
What do I do now? I got an apartment I can't afford anymore. I've got a car payment I can't make. I've got this big ass stereo that's I bought on on credit. So yeah, it's if I don't care what you do, but if you don't get a hold of your money management or whatever, you're gonna have trouble even in the best situations. So
absolutely, man. I wanted to ask you, like, first of all, before I go on with the next question, can you say, because you worked on Leprechaun, I'm not a big horror movie guy, but my friend Chris is. Can you say hello to my friend Chris?
Hey, Chris.
And my friend Akissa, who me and her, we both love Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So yeah. So I have a question, like the future of movies. So like not recently, maybe like 6 months ago, there was a director named Ava DuVernay. And she had said something that kind of shook me to my core, because I'm a movie lover and I'm a movie goer. And she said that she sees that like eventually movie theaters or the movie going experience is going to start to become extinct, because there's so much content out there coming out through streaming, and it's like fast paced process now. I mean, it's not like back in the day I had to go to a movie theater in order to see my favorite movie. Now it's like I still have to do that, but I could really wait 2 months and then it'll be on streaming in no time. And it makes me sick to my stomach to think about that. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, where do you see the future of movies going?
Well,
with streaming and everything.
Right now, I've just pretty much, as a consumer, I've just pretty much given up. If I hear about something that interests me, I'll make a little note and try to follow up on it. And there's such a growing list just on what's available now. I could never watch them all.
Right.
It's just what would you call that? It's just saturation. It's just horribly saturated, where all you have to do, is make a movie, pump it out, and it could just disappear. I never hear about it, and then run across it later on. And the brick and mortar theaters, I hope they can figure it out. They're running people away because they're trying to play this, whatever the market will bear thing. But if you want to take 2 adults and 3 kids and buy all that popcorn,
yeah,
or whatever, and you've already ponied up for the tickets, you've already ponied up for the gasoline.
Oh gosh.
So it's like it's prohibitively expensive. So I don't know what the answer is to put smaller screens and more of them, as I know has been done, but it could end up to where the only place you can really see a motion picture in a theater is IMAX. And what a loss it would be to where IMAX, well, we have all these IMAX, classics and films, but there's nobody to show them. So yeah, I mean, it's concerning, it's been going on slowly, and you never know which way, if it'll swing back or continue down the path it's going. I just, I don't have a crystal ball, so that's as much as I can say about it without you getting anything out of anything I said, because you already knew it. So
I mean,
yeah,
because even as it's so crazy, like, because I have no problem with them putting out content like that. Like, say for example, Star Wars. I love Star Wars. That's like another movie that I grew up loving. But they have so much content of it to where, like, when a Star Wars movie does actually come out, you're just like, oh, okay. It's not an event anymore. There's no like, oh my gosh, Star Wars. It's like, oh, okay, another Star. You know what I mean? It's almost like it's like quantity over quality. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love The Mandalorian. When that was out, I thought that was fantastic. But like, some stuff is just like it's starting to become a little too much, and I hate to say that because I'm a fan of it. And I just want them to kind of not take advantage of the fan base. Don't put out a lot of stuff because the fan base is going to watch it because of the label that's stuck on there. Put out stuff that's quality and it's going to make sense.
Well, they're going to keep feeding that insatiable desire until they start losing money. I mean, that's the way it's going to happen. That's what I think. But there seems to be an insatiable desire. I saw a little video of parents with their kid dressed as a stormtrooper, little bitty guy, like 5, 6 years old.
Yeah.
And they do the big Disneyland march, and Lord Vader comes by, and the kid kneels and bows his head to Lord Vader. And I thought, God, it's kind of spooky. Right. I don't know how I feel about that. But you have many generations that are ready to just, stay in line in lockstep. And for some reason, it seems like there's an awful lot of concentration on the dark side. That it seems like that speaks to people, which it's not a good place, probably, for our earth, for our world.
Right.
But I again, that's all I have to say. I mean, it's in a galaxy far, far away for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I want them to put out stuff, but I just want them to think about what they're putting out and make sure it's quality. I just got a few more questions for you. that are to me like my most important ones. One, how did the year of 2020 change you as a person?
You're talking about COVID.
Well, in general, because there's a lot of stuff that happened in years, like
Yeah.
COVID and all this other stuff that happened.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was a turning point for me. For for me having to go out there and still work because my job didn't care, so I had to go out there and still work, and I still had to make money. But I learned, for me, it's like I learned that if you want to do anything, the time to do it is now. So I created a podcast, and I got other things in the works as well. And I just realized, like, I believe in God, and I don't think God just put me here to just work a job 9 to 5 and just die. I think He put me here for a reason. So, yeah. How did 2020 change you?
Well, I don't know what to say except I'm with you. No matter what the world's doing, there's something else going on that's a lot bigger, that we should pay attention to that first, and then deal with the world around us. I wasn't that isolated because I'm in a small town and I'm pretty much isolated all the time anyway. But it did, it was like, oh man, this is, finally starting to eat on me. And I had a friend that wanted to do a horror film. And it was originally going to shoot it in New York State, which not in a million years.
Right.
He called me up one day. He goes, well, what do you think about coming to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania? And I went, what are you talking about? Gettysburg in the middle of COVID? He goes, we found an old hotel. It's got 99% of all the sets that we need already there.
Oh, wow.
Locations and, places for the sets that we're going to make. And what we're going to do is we're going to test everybody that goes in, shoot a film, and then have all the food brought in and everything, and then nobody got sick, nobody got ill or killed or whatever. And I literally got off the plane, got into a car, went to the hotel, walked in the hotel, shot the film, and walked out of the hotel and went straight back to the airport. And it's like, wow, how did I manage to, get a break from the isolation? When at about the time, it starts kind of eating on you. So I was blessed, and when I say that, I know you mean it the same way I do. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. How can people reach you, and what other? I know you do a lot of cons. Do you have anything coming up? I think in the next month you got something coming up, but also about how can people reach you if they want to reach you?
I am on Instagram at official Mark Holton, and that's probably the best way to reach me, is go on there and follow me and drop me a note. If you want to send me an email, I try to keep that business only or whatever, but it's simple. Contact Mark Holton at Gmail.
Okay.
I am doing a lot of conventions this year, and I guess from now on, if I can continue to be successful at it, I'll be in Oklahoma City the first weekend in August. And the second weekend in August, I'll be in Dallas.
Nice.
And in September, I will be at FallCon. And then I'm actually booked all the way into March next year.
Oh wow, that's great.
It's not. They're never. I don't like to talk about things until they're announced, because sure as hell, the last. One of the last podcasts that I did, I announced that I was going to be in Indianapolis, and it didn't happen.
Things happen. Yeah.
Yeah. the ever-shifting sands beneath our feet, Emmanuel. Gotta keep going.
Yeah, definitely. You gotta learn how to pivot, man. That's how I learned from this whole podcasting thing, man. Like people can like say they're gonna do something and then they're like, oh, I can't do it. And just like, okay, you gotta accept it and just keep on moving and pivot. So
yeah.
But I really appreciate your time. I'm glad you decided to come on, man, because this has been a treat for me. And again, like I said, man, thank you for this whole podcast is about giving a person their flowers. And I want to say thank you for being a part of like some movies that I love, man. And your characters played an important part in those movies. Like from Teen Wolf 2, and Pee Wee's Big Adventure, man. I would say thank you for being a part of my childhood, man, and keep on pushing, man. Thank you. I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you for the flowers, and that's exactly why I wore this today, because I did that, man. That's a very cool sell, and I wish you all the luck in the world.
I really appreciate that, man. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a fantastic day, man, and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, Emmanuel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.